Have you ever wondered why some men effortlessly command respect from women while others seem invisible, talked over, walked on, or quietly dismissed? What if I told you there's one thing, something subtle, something you may not even notice, that's quietly draining her respect for you every single time? And to be completely honest, it's not just one thing, it's a pattern, a way of showing up that seems harmless on the surface, but erodes something sacred underneath. In this video, we're not just talking about how to fix it, we're going deeper into the quiet choices that shape how she sees you and how you see yourself. The truth is, many men lose a woman's respect not because they were unkind or inattentive, but because they abandoned the very strength that made them magnetic to begin with. So if you've ever found yourself constantly giving, constantly pleasing, constantly stepping back just to keep things calm, this message is for you. We're about to begin, but before we do, if you're ready to stop betraying your identity for validation and start leading with quiet strength, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station. Let's get into it. 1. Saying yes to everything just to keep the peace. It doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly, moment by moment. You start compromising, just a little. She asks if you can cancel plans with your friends, and though you were looking forward to it, you say, sure. She wants to choose the restaurant again, and though you've been craving something different, you smile and agree. She wants to binge another romantic series, and even though you're burnt out, you nod without protest. You tell yourself it's nothing. That being easygoing, flexible and accommodating is what a good man does. That compromise is love, and sometimes it is, but not always. Because underneath that soft-spoken yes is a quiet erosion, and it's not your love that's breaking, it's your self-respect. You see, when you continuously agree to things that go against your desires, not because you want to, but because you're afraid of upsetting her, you're not being kind. You're being afraid. You're not compromising. You're avoiding. And make no mistake, women can feel the difference. They can sense when your compliance isn't grounded in confidence, but in fear. When you're not leading the moment with clarity, but shrinking to avoid discomfort. And they begin to respond to you accordingly, not with deeper love, but with growing frustration, and eventually indifference. Because over time, a man who cannot stand for anything cannot stand out. A man who always yields loses his shape. Every time you suppress your opinions, your preferences, your needs, just to keep the peace, you lose a piece of your presence. Every time you blindly agree just to keep her happy, you're silently killing her respect for you. She may never say it out loud, but she feels it. And the respect that once grounded your connection begins to slip. Not because you're not nice enough, not because you're not attentive, but because she no longer sees you as a man with spine, with substance, with self-direction. A woman doesn't respect a man who has no identity. And what begins as convenience, her getting her way more often than not, soon turns into imbalance. She starts leading, and you follow. She decides, and you comply. The dynamic subtly shifts, and suddenly you're no longer a partner. You're a placeholder, predictable, passive, emotionally invisible. You become that guy who says, whatever you want, honey, until whatever becomes whoever. And it's not because she's cruel or demanding, it's because you stopped offering any challenge, any polarity, any reason for her to stay anchored to the man she once admired. Because the truth is, she doesn't want control. She wants strength. Not domination, but clarity. Not submission, but partnership with direction. And you can't offer that if your default mode is surrender. So what do? You start saying no, not with aggression or ego, but with grounded calm. You let your preferences speak, even when they're different. When she asks you to skip the gym again, you say, "I understand you'd like me to stay in, but I've committed to my workout. Let's meet up afterwards." No apology, no drama, just presence and self-respect. When you're not in the mood for her favorite genre again, you don't fake a smile and endure it. You offer something better, your truth. "I'm not really in the mood for another romantic movie tonight. Want to find something we'll both enjoy?" And when she sees you stand in what you want, without invalidating what she wants, respect rises again. And perhaps most importantly, you hold boundaries around the things that define you. Whether it's your Friday night game with friends, your early morning runs, your creative time alone, you protect it. Not because you love her less, but because you remember that the version of you she fell for had a life of his own. When you do this, something shifts. You begin to feel more like yourself again, not just a boyfriend or partner, but a man. One with edges, with direction, with rhythm. And ironically, as you stop trying so hard to keep her happy, she becomes more drawn to you. Not because you're pushing her away, but because you're rooted in something deeper than her approval. She doesn't want a man who pleases. She wants a man who leads, who listens, yes, but also knows where he's going. Not a man who follows quietly, but one who walks with quiet strength and expects the world, including her, to meet him there. 2. Apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. There's a kind of apology that doesn't come from wrongdoing. It comes from discomfort. You didn't hurt her. You didn't cause her stress. But you say, "I'm sorry anyway." Not because it's the truth, but because you've been trained to smooth things over, to make the tension go away, to make yourself smaller so the moment feels safer. It seems harmless, even noble. She's having a bad day, so you say, "Sorry you're going through that," even when you had nothing to do with it. She bumps into you by accident, and you're the one saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." She pulls away emotionally or reacts with frustration, and you instinctively apologize, not because you meant harm, but because you're afraid of losing her affection. You might think you're showing empathy, that you're being gentle, but what you're really doing is reinforcing a dangerous message, one that chips away at how she sees you and, more importantly, how you see yourself. You're sending the signal that your very presence is a problem that needs managing, that just by existing in the same space, you might be causing trouble, and slowly that becomes the role you assume in the relationship, the one who tiptoes, who anticipates reactions before they happen, who over-apologizes not out of accountability, but out of fear. And that fear does not inspire love. It does not invite trust. It kills respect. Because when you consistently say sorry without cause, without wrongdoing, without strength, you begin to train her to see you differently. You're not the grounded, confident man who can handle tension. You're the guy who's constantly trying to escape it, who walks on eggshells to avoid ever being misunderstood, who becomes more careful than present. You're literally positioning yourself as someone who needs to constantly justify his existence. And make no mistake, she notices, maybe not consciously, maybe not right away, but in her nervous system, in the part of her that's wired to assess strength, she starts to feel less safe with you, not more. Because if you can't hold your ground, if you crumble under invisible pressure, then how can you be trusted to hold anything else? Eventually, she may start pulling back, snapping more easily, showing less warmth. You'll feel the shift, and you'll tell yourself she's being distant, cold, unkind, but deep down, you'll know. You helped build that distance by removing the structure she needed to lean on, your emotional solidity. And let's be honest, no woman ever said, "Wow, his insecurity is so attractive." No woman dreams of a man who apologizes for breathing, for speaking, for simply being. She doesn't want to be surrounded by eggshells. She wants to stand next to someone who can remain strong, even when she can't. Someone who doesn't disappear into guilt and self-doubt every time something feels off. I can't respect someone who's always walking on eggshells around me. That's what one woman said to a man I once coached, and it broke him. Because for 6 months he thought he was being the perfect boyfriend, kind, supportive, always available, always sorry when things weren't going well. But what she saw was a man who didn't believe in his own place in the relationship, a man who apologized not from strength, but from insecurity. She couldn't admire that. She couldn't trust it. And eventually, she couldn't love it either. This isn't about never apologizing. Real men own their mistakes. They're not afraid to say, "That was on me. I'll do better." But they also know when not to apologize. They don't use sorry to cover up discomfort. They don't use it as a shield against rejection. They don't give it away just to avoid emotional tension. If that's something you've been doing, there's no shame in it. But there is a choice to be made now. Start by pausing. The next time your instinct is to say, "I'm sorry," stop and ask, "Did I do something wrong? Am I apologizing to take responsibility or to be liked?" If it's the latter, hold your tongue. Choose presence over guilt. Choose stability over approval. Then replace sorry with strength. If she's having a rough day, you don't need to take it on as your fault. Say, "That sounds really tough. Want to talk about it?" If she makes a mistake, like spilling her coffee, don't reflexively apologize. Offer help. "Let me get a towel." That's leadership. That's grounded support. That's what a strong partner does. And most importantly, start training your nervous system to believe this truth. You are not a burden. Your presence doesn't require permission or apology. You belong in every space you stand in, as long as you carry yourself with clarity, honesty, and self-respect. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention, but it never apologizes for simply existing. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You stand in your truth with calm, grounded strength. That is what makes you magnetic. Not your guilt, not your deference, but your certainty. And when she feels that, she doesn't want to push you away. She wants to draw nearer. Not because you're agreeable, but because you remind her of something powerful, something rare. A man who respects himself enough not to say sorry for being real. 3. Abandoning your life to revolve around hers. Before she entered your life, you had momentum. You had your routines, your circles, your passions. Maybe it was your early morning workouts, your weekend bike rides, your late nights building a side hustle. You had things that mattered, things that reminded you of who you were when no one was watching. And then, somewhere in the gravity of love, something shifted. Not all at once, not intentionally. It was subtle. You started saying no to your hobbies to say yes to more time with her. You stopped showing up to those workouts because she wanted to sleep in together. You drifted from your friends because every weekend became couple time. You didn't feel forced. You told yourself it was love, that this is what it means to care, to prioritize the relationship. And at first, she was flattered. She noticed how available you were, how present, how much attention you gave her. She may have even called it sweet or thoughtful. But slowly, invisibly, the current beneath that sweetness began to change. Because what seemed like commitment started to look like abandonment. Not of her, of yourself. Because when a man gives up everything that makes him who he is for a relationship, he sends a message louder than words ever could. You're telling her, "I have nothing better going on in my life than you." And while that might sound romantic in theory, in practice, it creates an imbalance. You begin orbiting around her instead of building something beside her. She becomes the sun, and you, You become the man whose entire world rises and falls on her mood, her availability, her validation, and no woman dreams of dating a guy whose entire purpose revolves around her. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not love she loses when you disappear into the relationship. It's respect. It's the sense of polarity. It's the mystery. It's the masculine edge that attracted her in the first place. You stop being the man with vision, with mission, with momentum. You start becoming background noise, emotionally safe, but spiritually flat. She didn't fall for a man who needed her to feel whole. She fell for a man who was already whole and chose to share his life. So when you let go of your goals, your friendships, your passions, thinking it will bring her closer, you don't draw her in. You quietly push her away. She may not leave immediately, but something inside her begins to disconnect. Not because she doesn't care, but because she no longer sees you as someone rooted in his own purpose. But here's the good news. You don't have to choose between love and self. You don't need to pull away from her to find your edge again. You simply have to return to what made you magnetic in the first place. Not the fact that you were available, but that you were alive. Start protecting your purpose. Don't cancel the gym just because she's not going. Don't drop your business idea because it takes time away. Don't abandon the friendships that remind you of your strength. Those things don't compete with your relationship. They sustain it. Set your rhythm and speak it with calm confidence. Hey, Saturday's the day I catch up with my boys and reset. I'd love to see you Sunday. Not said with guilt, not with hesitation, with presence, with clarity, with leadership. That kind of man earns her respect even more because he doesn't lose himself just to keep her close. Keep evolving. Pick up the book you stopped reading. Recommit to the goal you've been putting off. Join that class. Launch that project. Not to impress her, not to win her back, but because you need it. Because you were never meant to shrink in love. You were meant to expand. And when she sees you choose yourself, not out of arrogance but out of alignment, something shifts again, this time in your favor. She leans in. She watches you move with quiet certainty. She sees the man of depth, purpose, strength, someone worth respecting and fighting to keep. Because the truth is, you don't become more lovable by erasing yourself. You become irresistible when you return to the man who had a life before her and still chooses to live fully with her, not for her. That's the difference, and that difference is everything. Summary. Let's be real. She'll never respect you if you keep doing these three things. Not because she's cruel or demanding, but because respect isn't something you get by default. It's something you either protect or slowly give away. And the truth is, the more you silence your voice, question your worth, and abandon your own life to accommodate hers, the faster that respect disappears. Respect isn't lost all at once. It erodes slowly. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you apologize for things beyond your control, every time you push aside your own life to orbit around hers. And with each small surrender, you give away the very things that once made you magnetic. Your voice, your confidence, your identity. But the moment you choose to reclaim those parts of yourself, the moment you decide to stop negotiating your worth for approval, everything changes. She sees it. She feels it. You're no longer just present in the relationship. You're grounded in it. You're no longer asking for respect. You're embodying the kind of man who draws it without saying a word. She doesn't look at you the same way. She looks up to you, not because you forced it, but because you remembered who you are and refused to let that be diluted for the sake of peace or validation. So ask yourself now, and answer honestly, are you ready to stop sacrificing who you are just to be loved in a way that doesn't even see you clearly? Because the woman worth keeping is the one who respects you most when you stand firm in who you are. If this message stirred something real inside you, there's more waiting. In the next video, we dive even deeper into what it means to become the kind of man who commands respect without ever having to ask for it. So, like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and when you're ready, I'll be right there, waiting.